Those of you who are married, praying to be married, thinking maybe one day, or maybe you haven't decided, I don't know if I'm going to get married or not. Unfortunately, maybe some of us are sitting here going, well, I tried it and it didn't work, or you've seen what was modeled in front of you and you're like, I don't want nothing to do with that. The good news is tonight, you've heard what God has to say about it. God's ideal for a man and a woman. It is so beautiful. Listen, I'll close with this. It is so beautiful that God himself says, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that right there to display to the whole world my love for the church and the church's love for me. God didn't take the Grand Canyon. He didn't take the double rainbow. He didn't take the majesty of the seas or the mysteries of heaven. He didn't use any of those things on earth as a picture of him and his church, his bride. He chose his ideal for a man and a woman. It is a most glorious, beautiful thing when it is done God's way. So I would challenge you tonight, forget all that junk that the world has taught you. Forget a lot of stuff that you've learned in church. Physical intimacy. Man, there's so many verses I want to share right now. Just a few more. Can I do just a few more? We're way over. We're not going to do a last song. Okay. Genesis chapter 2. God says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. And the man and his wife were naked and unashamed. Everything that the world offers out there is shame and guilt. Within the marriage relationship, there's no shame. It's not dirty. It's not ugly. It's not anything to be embarrassed about. I'll give you another place that you can look, and that's 1 Corinthians chapter 7, where Paul is answering a question that the Corinthians have asked about marriage and relationships and intimacy physically. And he says that a husband should render to his wife due benevolence, and the wife to her husband. They should not defraud one another. Don't play games with physical intimacy. Oh, no. You're in the doghouse, boy. Don't play games with that. Right? If you want to prove a point, figure another way to do it. Don't play games with that. Your physical intimacy that God has given you, once again, it's a gift, and he guides and governs what he gives. Right? And you should give to one another due benevolence. That means I don't call the shots with intimacy with my spouse, my wife. She does. Because Paul goes on to say that the husband doesn't have power over his own body, but the wife. We say this, right? I'm hers. But in a very literal way, I am hers. Right? I've been bought with a price. I'm to glorify God in my body. I belong to Christ. But in a earthly manner way, physically, I belong to Cindy Keaton. I'm hers. And I'm to render to her due benevolence. I am to store up love and intimacy. I am to draw it out. And she should not be thirsty. Ever. She should be satisfied. That's my responsibility. And if you're a spouse, that's your responsibility. You guys need to get together and figure it out. There shouldn't be problems. I can't tell you how many times I've counseled people in the church and they're like, well, my wife or my husband or whatever. And I'm like, what is going on in the church? And don't play guessing games either. Talk. Don't play this stuff like, well, you should have known. That's dumb. That's dumb. You should have known. Like, what are we going to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to eat? You pick. Steakhouse. And don't get mad. If you didn't want to go to steakhouse, you should have said we're going to Chinese, right? But don't play games with that. Render due benevolence. The Bible is saying that you guys should be physically intimate, husbands and wives. And then I'll give you this one last one. Oh. Maybe there should have been a 2 or 3 or 4 part one. But anyway, in the book of Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews says this: marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. What takes place privately between a husband and a wife is undefiled. It is not dirty. It is not shameful. It is not ugly. It is not unnecessary evil, right? It is something that God designed and talks explicitly about in His Word. Therefore, if He's not afraid or ashamed, we shouldn't be. And if you want your marriage to thrive, then you need to address this area of your relationship. And it should thrive, right? Cistern, well, fountain, rivers, right? It's the idea of it just continuing to grow and blossom and grow and blossom. And what would happen in this world if just the marriages here at this small church in this community, what would happen? What would happen to upcoming young people that see that modeled, who wouldn't go out there in curiosity and ignorance and be taught crazy stuff by the world, but it would be something that we would share and teach biblically to them so that they would know and they would be able to function and operate in it. Oh, I could go on and on and on, but I won't. But I encourage you, get this truth in your heart.